Let's get some more reaction now. Let's speak to Jordan Griffiths, the City of Tshwane's Chief of Staff in the Mayor's office. Mr. Griffiths, good afternoon. Welcome to Today here on eNCA. An hour ago or so, I spoke to Lebogang Maile, the MEC for Kokta, and I think you might have heard him there saying all he's doing is mandated by the law when he's getting reports that there's financial challenges that Tshwane is facing. He needs to get the information, which he said should have been proactively sent to him.
Thank you. Thank you for the interview, and thank you for the opportunity. It's interesting. The MEC says that they're just doing what he's paid to do. You know, that they are merely, acting on what they must do legislatively. It seems the MEC doesn't even know the legislation that he's supposed to abide by provincially, namely that the city of Tshwane every month sends through a Section 71 finance report to the provincial treasury, which are then compiled into a quarterly report and presented at the provincial legislature. The MEC talks about getting paid to do his job. Well, it sounds like the MEC isn't doing his job, because if you wanted to know what the status of the city's finances were, you'd merely look at the reports that are provided by his colleagues in the Gauteng Provincial National Treasury. But what's curious about the MEC's letter that he sent to the city of Tshwane is he makes reference to Section 139 of the Constitution, which speaks about placing a city under administration, which MEC Maile has incredibly poor experience with. He did place the city under administration in 2020, and the administrators he deployed took the city's 300 million rand surplus and turned it into a 4.3 billion rand deficit. MEC Maile was also repeatedly schooled in the courts, High Court, Supreme Court, and Constitutional Court, on how a Section 139 actually works, until his administrators were thrown out after they were unlawfully deployed to the city for 8 months. So much of what the MEC is doing is total nonsense. But in particular, I find it really amusing how he says he's merely doing his job. MEC, you receive the finance reports from the city of Tshwane as a member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature every quarter, sir.
What do you think?
You should be paying more attention.
What do you think would be behind his letter? He said to me an hour or so ago that there's nothing political here. People must not be paranoid. He said some of the people in Tshwane are paranoid that maybe he's out to get somebody, and he says he's not. So what do you think, having responded the way you've done now, what do you think is behind this?
Well, it's, what the MEC is saying is curious, because no sooner did he issue the letter to the city of Tshwane, then I was CC'd, in fact, probably mistakenly, by an email sent by his chief of staff to their communications department, instructing them to then release a statement about the letter that he just sent the mayor's office in the city of Tshwane. So I find that somewhat amusing, because why on earth would you then want to politicize and go to the media about what is routine work, if that makes sense?
You don't think you don't think it's in the public interest that it should come out?
But sir, it is coming out. It gets presented at the Gauteng Provincial Legislature every quarter. There are legislated finance reports which the city of Tshwane must produce. They are called Section 71 reports, which the MEC should have eyes on. So when we receive letters asking to inquire about the city's financial position, it's almost like the MEC has been asleep at the wheel, and seems that perhaps there's another agenda at play.
Are you going to be responding? You got 7 days, according to
Mr.
Yeah,
most
Maile.
certainly. Most certainly. Oh, most certainly. Oh no, we're already preparing all the documentation to respond quite soundly to the MEC's letter, which was just a one-pager, which was speculation on various media articles. In fact, what was disappointing about the MEC's letter is that it merely seemed to respond to media reports and didn't in fact engage on any of the City of Tshwane reports that are submitted to the Gauteng legislature. So what it indicates to us is that the MEC doesn't get his information about the status of the municipalities in this entire province through the legislated reports that are sent to the Gauteng legislature. He seems to primarily rely on media reports, which is particularly poor style of governance. I'd advise the MEC to pay more attention in the Gauteng provincial legislature of which he is a member, so that he can actually deliberate on the reports in which the municipalities of this province must submit by law, and which he should be looking at.
Okay, the matter at hand, the issue at hand is about your financial position as the city of Tshwane. How would you describe the current financial position of Tshwane while you are preparing all these documents to respond within the next 7 days? Can you give us an idea?
Yeah, so the city of Tshwane's current financial position is one that is stable, but requiring consistent improvement. Our cash flow is not where it should be. As you would know, we implemented at the beginning of this year the aggressive Tshwane Yatima campaign, which sought to ensure that we collect revenue. We are continuously engaging with Eskom on their payment requirements to ensure that we service our debt to Eskom. But we're making sure that we service our debtors and stay on top of our creditors as well. For comparison's sake, eMfuleni, which is a local district municipality, has all but collapsed in this province, and yet MEC Maile has no fundamental interest in the status of eMfuleni. But the city of Tshwane's finances are going to take a long time to recover. As I indicated to you earlier, MEC Maile's administrators left us with a 4.3 billion rand deficit over 2 years ago. This is not something that you recover from very quickly. It takes incredible physical discipline. It requires you to make very hard decisions about where you invest and what projects you run, and furthermore requires you to be very aggressive in the way in which you collect revenue, which can often be unpopular but necessary.
Yeah, a statement, it's a one-pager that you've issued this letter in response. It's a media statement to Lebogang Maile's media statement. You gave a table. There's a table there in terms of your revenue, your operating surplus or deficit from 2016-2017. You can see there a very nice improvement. You see a very nice upward trend or movement on the revenue in terms of your total revenue from 28.1 billion in 2016-2017 to 36 billion currently. But your expenditures have been going up. Now you're sitting at 36 total revenue, your top line, and your expense line is 36 as well. What's contributed to that? I mean, basically, you're standing still. You're spending as much as you're getting in.
Yeah, so, I mean, there are a number of great numbers in that statement. In particular, you've touched on one. The challenge is that expenditure has not fundamentally accelerated too high. It's that revenue hasn't grown as we needed it to grow, as expected. I mean, what's really important there, the numbers that you omitted are the surplus and deficit numbers if you track over the financial years.
No, I'm coming to that. No, I'm coming to that.
I won't jump
I'm
there.
focusing. I just wanted to focus on the top line first. I'm focusing on the top line first. Yeah.
No, let's focus on the expenditure and the revenue. So obviously expenditure, a leading driver of expenditure is the city salary bill, which we've been very conscious about keeping under control and making sure that that doesn't escalate. Obviously, the city spends significant amount of money on urban maintenance, repairs, and these kind of things are quite expensive, particularly if they're inflation-driven. The leading drivers of the expenditure as well are bulk purchases. We buy water and we buy electricity in bulk, and then we sell that on to consumers. And the big discrepancy that you are seeing in terms of expenditure and revenue is that catch-up. So in many cases, what we are buying in bulk, right? We're buying electricity in bulk. We're not able to reclaim that revenue back from our customers. And that's because there are high numbers of illegal connections. There are people who are maybe breaching their meters or not paying their bills. And this is why we've had to go out on an aggressive revenue campaign.
Sure.
So this is what's critically important for us to stabilize our finances.
Okay, now let's come to your favorite line item on this statement, on this table, operation surplus and deficit. I mean, quite nicely improved from 118 million to $500 million to half. But then you got that whack in 2020, as you said, when the city of Tshwane, as you say in your statement, was unlawfully placed by MEC Lebogang Maile under administration, 4.3 billion. That's quite a whack. But coming to 2020, 2021 financial year, you've actually reduced that tremendously by over 3.7 billion. I wonder how you did that.
Yeah, correct. So, I mean, the administrators left left the city with a 4.3 billion rand deficit, and in the space of about 8 months, at this point, this was before the current multi-party government was in place, but Executive Mayor Williams was first elected on the beginning of November 2020, and by 2020, and by the end of the 2020-2021 financial year, we've managed to significantly downscale through massive cost containment, squeezing on expenses, and trying to enhance revenue to reduce that 4.3 billion rand deficit down to about, well, less than a billion, as you indicated, to around 600 million rand in deficit, which is still not ideal, but it took a lot of hard work. And obviously, we'll be getting our audited financial results at some point from this financial year previously that has just concluded, and we'll be looking to try and continue that good work. But that deficit does massive damage over the long term to our city. It affects our credit rating, it affects our ability to get loans, all of which affects our ability to fund programs over the long term. So the city, since the administrators left, has been in a situation where it has been constricting and having to do the core basics while we work to safeguard and protect our finances.
Okay, finally, and if you may answer this one very briefly, just choosing one item that's been highlighted in some media reports that you are battling with, the Eskom bill. Have you settled the Eskom bill? Has Tshwane paid up? Are you paid up with Eskom?
So let me put it this way. We have no historical debt with Eskom. At the beginning of our challenges with Eskom are the fact that when Eskom bills us, they expect payment within 15 days. And currently, the city's cash flow simply does not allow that. So for instance, right now, we owe Eskom for the previous month because that bill has not been paid. That bill was due on the 15th of September. It was issued at the beginning of September. And by the end of September, we had paid, it was a winter month, it was an August month, the bill was about 1.5 billion. We paid approximately 500 million rand, and our intention is to service that remaining billion rand into the middle of this month. So I don't want to deny that it's very much in the news. We are playing catch up with Eskom, and we are slowly getting ourselves back to a cash flow situation which is far more stable. But one of our biggest gripes with Eskom, which we've been explaining to them, is to say they have a billing cycle of 15 days. So when Eskom hasn't received all of their money within 15 days, they immediately start effectively attacking the city, which is not quite fair. Our billing cycle is much longer. It's 30 to 60 days for many of our residents. And this points to the observation you made earlier about expenditure and revenue. We buy in bulk from Eskom. We sell that on to customers. And so without cash reserves, which we don't have, making sure that we manage that bill becomes month to month. And that becomes very difficult for us. But it's something that we treat very seriously. In contrast to some of the other municipalities, as I mentioned earlier, Mfuleni owes Eskom 4 billion rand, debt that goes back years. And you don't hear a word about that from Eskom. Many other municipalities owe Eskom debt in the billions that goes back across the country, many months. Our debt is not historical with Eskom, it is current, and we service it each and every month.